Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. I'm here with Andrew Walton.
Two-thirds of all adult Americans either have had burnout or they have friends or colleagues that have burnout. So it's a major problem. I mean, just the medical costs alone are $250 billion a year. I was an entrepreneur for 15 years. I took two of my crazy ideas to become global leaders in their field. So, one strand of my DNA is entrepreneurship. I did a lot of consulting when I sold my group of businesses. And one of the things I was doing was to help companies that had plateaued. Maybe they had started being very innovative, and then at some point that had just flattened out. I started working with companies that needed innovation in some way, either new product innovation or new marketing processes or globally new ways of distributing their products. I've always been fascinated by creativity. Both my parents were very creative. I'm a creative person. I've worked with a lot of creatives. So I started to become very interested in this business innovation interface. And that led me to go back to school and do a PhD in social psychology, focused on organizational level creativity and innovation. We're born with a natural balance between the ways that we think. Quite often we lose the creative side of that balance. And so we tend to think very deductively and analytically here in the West as adults. And so we lose a sort of creative thinking process. So I've developed a program where I help people reintegrate that creative thinking into our thinking processes. Little things can help start to generate new neural pathways to how we view our world. When people get stressed and they get anxious, they go into what I call the hamster wheel effect. They just literally go round and round and round. They're like a racehorse with blinders. All they can see is one thing ahead, and that thing is to do with their burnout. So rather than the kind of traditional processes where you sort of gradually change people's thought patterns, my process actually generates new neural pathways, and these are along creative lines. So everybody was born creative. When we're a baby, we don't have the capacity to think logically or deductively because we've got no history. We're talking about a blank board. So being able to think in this different way is something we have all done. So it's actually not difficult to retrain people to introduce this into their thinking practice. What happens then is that when people start to feel very depressed, stressed, anxiety-ridden, or other signs of burnout, they can practice going into this different neural pathway. And it's incredibly effective. And that neural pathway, by the way, it has been shown in fMRI studies, is the same neural pathway that's related to emotional intelligence. So when people are actually applying emotional intelligence, that particular pathway lights up on the imaging, and that's the same pathway that lights up when we're thinking creatively. Sometimes people with severe burnout won't even sort of go to bed. They'll just sit on the couch and watch TV until they just doze off, and then at some point they'll wake up. The other issue, which can have a lot of social ramifications, is to do with relationships. And people with burnout will often pull away from those people around them that could actually help them. You tend to find that relationships at work and at home begin to get very stressed with burnout.